Hi, this is Dan from Bible Prophecy and Truth. Today I'm going to talk about the mosaic painting that God painted for us, the images of the end time, and how they all fit together to create this one big picture within pictures within pictures of the end time and what the world will look like at the last day. And this mosaic that I've got here for you is just a conglomeration of pictures that I've either purchased or found on the internet and put together. I'm not an artist. I've done the best I can to put this together. If anybody watching this video is an artist or knows an artist that can paint the mosaic for me, then please contact me through my website, BibleProphecyandTruth.com. But this picture that I'm showing you here, I'm going to go through it piece by piece, and then I'm going to show it to you again at the end. But it represents the kingdoms of the world, the spirits that are in the world, the picture of the nations and the kingdoms that are going to be at the time of the end when Christ returns. And today we can see them for what they are, but in the past centuries and past millennia, the past 2,500 years, when Daniel was given these visions, they couldn't understand them because God said in Daniel 12:9, he said, the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end. They couldn't be understood until the time of the end, which is now. And since now we can understand them, and all of the other things that Jesus talked about and the other prophecies that were given to us show us that the time of the end is now, we can be certain that these are clearly understood for what they are at this time. Now, I always put a disclaimer out there because fulfilled prophecy cannot be stated as a fact until it has come to pass. And I've studied a lot of theories on prophecy. I've spent many hours and days studying the Word of God and poring over the Scriptures, and each individual word of the prophecies has to be paid attention to. And I believe that when you finish this video, and especially if you watch my other videos and watch them all, you will see what I see, and you'll agree with me that this is the mosaic God painted for us, and we are in the time of the end. Now, when I say mosaic, I'm talking about a picture within a picture. Like the Byzantine mosaics are taking colored glass and putting tiny pieces together to make an image, but I'm talking about pictures within pictures that make a mosaic painting. And here's an example, a couple of pictures where there's a man's face here that you can see. And then another picture of two birds on a tree branch. And if you look at the enlarged picture, you see that this man's face is actually a picture of another man painting, sitting on a rock, painting a landscape. And when the whole picture is viewed, especially in that smaller state, it just looks like a man's face, but when you get inside, you see all the different parts and pieces of it, and how it's actually a completely different picture. The same thing with the tree branch with the two birds. When you look up closely, it's actually a one bird and leaves on the tree. And it's just, I'm using these to illustrate what I'm talking about, the mosaic that God has painted, where he's got multiple parts of it. And you can see the big picture, but then you see all the individual components of it when you understand prophecy. And so I'm going to go through those piece by piece. And the first one is in Daniel 7. It talks about 4 kings or nations that they represent that will be in the world at the end time. And they're symbolized with animals or beasts, which are kings, and the nations they represent. We've got a lion, a bear, a leopard, and then this 10-horned terrible beast. And in Daniel 7, it tells us specifically that these are 4 kings which shall arise out of the earth. And in other videos, I talk about what it appears that these beasts are. The lion is Great Britain, the bear is Russia, the leopard is Germany, and the fourth dreadful and terrible beast with 10 horns is the 10 Islamic kings that give their power to the Antichrist in Revelation 17. That God specifically puts it in their hearts to give the Antichrist their power to fulfill God's will. And he says specifically that he's going to do that, and it's going to be 10 kings, and I say 10 Islamic kings because if you've watched my other videos, you know exactly what I mean there, what that fourth beast is. And it says specifically that they will exist at the time of Jesus' return, and that the first three will live on for a while, but the fourth, this 10-horned, dreadful, and terrible beast, is going to be destroyed. But the lion, the bear, and the leopard will live on for a while. It says in Daniel 7:11, I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain, talking about the fourth beast, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. It's talking about the return of Christ when he puts down the kingdoms of men and takes over the world. And it says the Ancient of Days will sit and the thrones are cast down. It says that specifically. And that is a picture of Christ returning and taking over the world, putting down the kingdoms of men, and beginning his millennial reign, where the Bible says he's going to rule with a rod of iron for 1,000 years, that last day of the 7 days of God's plan and his creation plan until the beginning of eternity with him. So that's Daniel 7. That's a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the mosaic. And then if we look at Daniel 2, the dream of Nebuchadnezzar is given to the king, and he can't remember the dream, or he dreamed the dream. He wasn't given to him. It was a dream that he had, and then God gave him the interpretation of that dream through Daniel, and told him specifically that there's consecutive kingdoms that will be from the time of Babylon, which is him, until the time of the return of Christ. It's consecutive rulers of the known world, specifically centered around Israel and the Middle East and the Mediterranean there, where all of prophecy is, that general area is where prophecy is focused. And we can see that it's the gold, head of gold, which is Babylon, and then the Media-Persia Empire, and then the Greek Empire, and then the Roman Empire. And then following that was the iron and clay, which is a broken, divided empire, it tells us, and it was the Holy Roman Empire, along with the Islamic Ottoman Empire, which controlled that same area that the other kingdoms ruled. And we know that they all come after each other, because it says, like Daniel 2:39, it says, and after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee. He's talking to the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. So he says, after thee will be another kingdom, and then another third kingdom of brass, which will bear rule, and so on and so forth through the 5 sections of the statue. And again, this will exist at the time of the return of Jesus. A stone was cut out without hands, as it says in Daniel 2:34, which smote the image upon its feet. They were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. That 5th section of iron and clay is going to be destroyed. The kingdoms of men will be put down, and Jesus will take over the world. So that's another piece of the puzzle, another part of that mosaic painting that God has painted for us. And I'm going to put them all together in the end here. I'm just putting each piece of it out there so we can see each piece of the picture, and then we'll put it together at the end. So then another piece of the puzzle is the 4 horsemen of Revelation. It's very popular. People know it as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but it's really not that. And in Zechariah 6, it shows us that these four horsemen are four spirits which are in the world. And there's a green horse, a red horse, a black horse, and a white horse. And in Zechariah, it's horses, and in Revelation, it's the horsemen that riding on these colored horses. And when we look at the world today, and look at what these horses and spirits that are in the world appear to be, is the white horse is Catholicism, and they follow after the black. It says specifically, the red horse is communism, is a great sword in the world. The black horse is capitalism, which goes into the north country. And the green horse is Islam, which goes south. And the black horse in the north quiets the spirit of this green horse. We're told these things specifically. And if you look at the world today, the area of biblical prophecy from Daniel 2 is enclosed in that orange enclosure, where it's the focus of the kingdoms of the world, and from Babylon to the return of Christ, and it's actually in that area there was a lot of different kings. As the kings ruled, there was different areas that changed, and the control changed in different areas, but it was all pretty much that same general area around the Mediterranean and in the Middle East, and specifically centered on Israel, because that's where God chose to put his name. He put his name in Jerusalem, as the Bible tells us. And so that's the focus of prophecy, is that area of the world. And then if we look at the four spirits that are in the world, they control the world itself and the thinking of the people that are under them, the world view, the way that they think, the way that they live their lives, their societies, and their cultures are all determined by these spirits that are over those parts of the world. And you can see that part in the Middle East and Africa and Europe there that's the area of prophecy that Daniel 2 is talking about, and the last days and the ruling of the world. And you can see that the black horse, capitalism, goes into the north country, into Europe. That's a capitalistic area, and it's followed by the white horse, which is Catholicism. The Catholics followed capitalism right into North America, Australia, into the north country in Europe, which is that focus area. And the green horse went south, and Islam is in southern Asia and northern Africa, the southern hemisphere, which is where the major population of Islam is definitely went south. And if you haven't seen the four horsemen, or the seven seals video talking about these four horsemen, definitely watch that one too, because they explain in detail what Islam is, and why is the green horse Islam, why is the black horse capitalism, why is the white horse Catholicism, and all that. But you can see that these spirits that are in the world, the red, the green, the white, and the black, all govern basically the entire world, where Catholicism and capitalism and Islam and communism represent almost 100% of the entire world. And it's the area of the kings that I'm talking about in the Middle East there, where we see all of that area is where Daniel 2, it's specifically in the end time prophecies and controlling the world, emanates from there. So then those four kings of Daniel 7, the lion, the bear, the leopard, and that 10-horned beast, when we get to Revelation 13, we see that this 10-horned, 7-headed, 10-horned beast becomes one, where it's a representation of all the four beasts of Daniel 7. You can see the 10-horned beast, the bear, the the four-headed leopard, and it does specifically say in Daniel 7 that the leopard has four heads, and that the lion is in Revelation 13 is the mouth of the beast. So this picture represents what the picture that God painted for us in Revelation 13, where all of those beasts, and we know that those beasts are going to exist at the time of the end when Jesus returns, and that fourth beast, the ten-horned beast, is going to be destroyed, and the others will live on for a while. It's going to be during that millennial reign of Jesus Christ that the lion, the bear, and the leopard continue to live on. And then when we go a step further, we see in Revelation 17 that the great whore, or the false prophet, the organization that the false prophet leads, will ride on the power of the Antichrist alliance, which is what Revelation 13 shows us, those kingdoms of the world, the lion, the bear, the leopard, and that ten-horned alliance will all ally together underneath the Antichrist, and that will be his political and military power base that he uses to control the world. The picture that God painted for us is just so amazing when it all comes together in this one final mosaic. And it's not just a political and military union, but it's also a religious union where the false prophet will cause the world to worship the Antichrist, and the world will be brought together under a single one world religion. And as it says in Revelation 13, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast, which is the Antichrist, is talking about the second beast, which is the false prophet. And he, the second beast, the false prophet, will exercise all the power of the first beast, the Antichrist, before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. And this is the abomination of desolation that Jesus talked about, that Daniel talked about, and that Paul talks about in 2 Thessalonians. He tells us, 2 Thessalonians 2:4, he tells us specifically that the Antichrist will sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And that's the abomination of desolation, and that's where he claims to be God. The false prophet is going to cause the world to worship him. He's going to pull fire from the sky. He's going to do miracles and deceive the world into believing that this man, the Antichrist, is actually from God. And he's going to deceive the entire world. So the beasts of Daniel 7 all become one in Revelation 13, and it's a political and military alliance that the Antichrist puts together to control the world. And then it's also a religious union where Catholicism and Islam will actually join together under Islam to become a one world religion. And again, I talk about that in great depth in other videos. So if we look at this final picture, and we look at all the pieces and parts of the puzzle, where we have the four spirits that are in the world, which is Islam, communism, Catholicism, and capitalism, they're represented in this picture. The lion, the bear, the leopard, and the final ten-horned beasts are all here. The fifth section of Daniel 2 is represented, the iron mingled with clay. The four horsemen, the spirits in the world, are all represented here. That ten-horned beast of Daniel 7, that fourth beast, has 10 horns, and the 10 toes of Daniel 2, that fifth section, is the feet and toes of iron mingled with clay, and there's 10 toes, it specifically says. And then there's 10 kings of Revelation 13 when that beast comes together, and then the 10 kings of Revelation 17. They're all depicting that same 10 king union that gives their power to the Antichrist. And this is going to be 10 Islamic nations that will ally under what they will call their Mahdi, the Muslim Messiah, and they will give their power to him, and then he will bring the other nations, Russia, and 2 European nations, Great Britain and Germany, all together to create this military power base. And If you've been watching the news at all in recent days, as of 2018, you know that Germany and Great Britain are virtually overrun by Muslims today. And that, so you can see how easily these two nations themselves with the Antichrist when he rises as the Muslim Mahdi. And then Russia as well is about 15% Muslim today, and Russia is very much going with the flow of power and will, as the Bible shows us here, it's almost a certainty that Russia will align themselves with the Antichrist in the last day and give him their power along with the other kings and along with the 10 kings of the Arab nations that give him their power. So you can see all those pieces fit perfectly in this final image God gave us. And it's also the clay of Daniel 2 is Islam. It's the clay, it's that Holy Roman Empire / Islamic Ottoman Empire of that fifth section of the statue, which it tells us specifically is divided and broken, partly strong and partly broken, because they've always, the Holy Roman Empire and the Islamic empires have always clashed, and they've been fighting back and forth, and they waxed and waned throughout the years, and they still exist today. And it's going to be what the Antichrist uses to bring together the final kingdom that he's going to rule, politically and religiously and economically. He's going to put all those three parts together, which is what it will take to rule the world. And he's going to align the world together. So we see the clay of Daniel 2 with Islam. We see the iron of Daniel 2 with both the lion and the leopard, which is the Holy Roman Empire represented there. And the iron of Daniel 2 is also represented in the religious aspect by Rome, by the Vatican, which is in Rome. And you can see how all those pieces just fit so perfectly together. And when you mesh this with an overlay on the world, and that specifically that area that God prophesies about, the center of the world actually revolves around Israel, and that's why this tiny little nation in the world has caused so much trouble for the world today, because that's where God put his name, and that's where Satan just hates that. And so everything is about this tiny little nation and how Satan is trying to destroy Israel with everything he can. And in the last day, the Battle of Armageddon, he's going to bring the nations of the world through the Antichrist down to try to wipe out Israel and take it over, and that's when God will finally finish his descent and return and wipe out those armies coming against Israel. You can see how this overlay here, it just fits so perfectly when you put all the pieces and parts together and all the different parts of the painting and put it all into one big picture, and how it fits so perfectly with what's going on in the world, all the different parts of it that God said would be closed up and sealed until the time of the end. Now that it's the time of the end, we can see it so easily, so clearly in this final mosaic. And so this picture that I showed you at the beginning of the video is all the different parts and pieces of it fit together to make this mosaic that God painted for us. And when you get your head around it and you really understand all the different parts, it comes together in this big picture that you can see that God painted for us, with all the different parts of the mosaic that put together this one painting. And like I said, if you are an artist, or you know anybody who's an artist that can actually do this for me, that would be awesome, because this is the best I can do by putting these different parts and pieces together on the same page. But it would be really awesome to see a painting of it with all the different pieces integrated into the painting. That would be, because that's the picture God painted for us. If you see it in your mind, you can see all the different parts and pieces and how they all fit so perfectly together. So I hope this has helped to understand the picture that God painted for us, to understand the last days and what the world will look like at that time. God gave us so much information, explicitly told us, and did it with symbolization. It was symbols of animals that represent kings and nations, and then the spirits in the world, which represent the different types of societies and in the world and their cultures. And it just, when you put it all together, and we know what's going to happen at the end, and we can see all the parts and pieces of the puzzle that fit so perfectly together in this final big picture, it's just amazing. And it's exactly what God wants us to understand. He wants us to see this, and he painted it for us in such a way that we can, if we just study and we just dig into the scriptures and study it for ourselves and look at all these different pictures that he painted for us and put it all together. It's just, praise the Lord. So I hope this has helped.